Okay. Welcome to this podcast episode of Young and Awakening. This is a podcast for and about spiritually awakening teenagers. And today I have with me Cassandra Powell from Light of Loving Kindness. Welcome.
Hi,
I'm
you.
so happy you're with us today. Cassandra is an extraordinary woman. She's the executive director of Light of Loving Kindness. And first I can say about Light of Loving Kindness, it's a nonprofit organization from South Side of Chicago focusing on bringing holistic, integrative solution and mindfulness-based interventions. So you're not just only working with young people, but today we are mainly talking about what you're doing for young people.
Yes.
Yeah, and I can say about Cassandra, now you can hear, she's truly extraordinary. She's a linguist and professor of communication and English. And in addition to being a student of life, she has earned 5 academic degrees and 2 master's level certification. And Cassandra is a yoga teacher specializing in trauma-sensitive yoga and yoga for stress and anxiety. She likewise teaches mindfulness and meditations and other modalities. And Cassandra is a strong advocate of promoting alternative, complementary, and integrative solution and mindfulness-based interventions to all who are interested in experiencing these non-invasive modalities. Her goal with Light of Loving Kindness is to provide access to these life-changing practices for all people, and especially to those who can afford them the least, but who can benefit from access to them the most. From meditation to asanas, bodywork to pranayama, breathing to energy healing, reiki, shamanic energy tools, etc., Cassandra helps us to change our minds by accepting that we are all beautiful, enlightened beings, remembering who we are and learning to love and heal ourselves, our families, our communities, our city, our planet, and beyond through the light of loving kindness. This is so beautiful, Cassandra. I really love it.
A lot.
Yeah. And I just want to say before we get started, the reason why we contacted you was because we heard you had this self-love boot camp for teenagers coming up. And I can just say that this is your COVID response, or this is something you made in response to COVID, for that you felt this urgent need for personal empowerment and community connection for young people, yes, and especially from trauma-affected communities. Can you say a little more about that before we get into the real questions? Because I'm really excited about it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's like a da-da-da-da, so now I've got to think of stuff to say, like to back all of that up. So if I can say this first, based on my introduction, I like to say that I work with energy, because I feel like it's all energy. And we have so many things that we have to call things so that people will understand what they are. So we feel like we do label them. I do too. I'll say I'm a Reiki master, I'm shamanic energy, sound vibration, but I like to say that it's all working with the energy. And then that kind of summarizes the work that I do personally. Self-love boot camp. Yes, it is our COVID response. The self-love boot camp is a 12-week program that we created to respond to the needs that young people are experiencing through the pandemic. And as we know that when we suffer traumatic events, people that suffer from PTSD, anxiety, depression, just because an event ends doesn't mean that what the person has experienced in that event ends. Trauma is like that. I like to say sometimes that trauma, I don't want to say this in a way that people will misunderstand it, so I will explain it. But I like to say memories that we have from trauma are not necessarily the best memories or real memories, because what happens when we have this trauma, we put all of this focus on the event, on what happened, and we miss everything around it. We forget things. It's like it's slow motion, or like the only thing that happened was this event. And so what doctors and psychologists are saying about young people right now is that suicide rates are up. They have doubled for some groups. stress, anxiety, hospitalizations for young people, children, all the way up through teens. It's just through the roof. And our young people, they went through COVID like we did. Think about what we experience as adults going through a pandemic. And then you have teenagers who are still trying to find themselves. So the Self-Love Bootcamp was our response. We created a 12-week program. Right now we're doing fundraising. We have a crowdsource funding campaign going on because we want to be able to give it for free to 75 young people from low income and trauma affected areas within the Chicagoland area. It's a wonderful program. That's what I'm going to tell you. And so look for it, look on social media or go to our website and you can read more about it. Yeah. And applications are open for it as well.
Yeah. And I think we should talk more about that later on after some of the questions, because I would really love to know more about what it is, because I know you have a lineup of different teachers and mentors who's going to go to teach on this boot camp. And I would love to go more into that later, but I would also love to hear something about your background, because that's a really exciting background. And for people to understand more, how did you get into this? So can you share a bit more about how you came to do this work with teenagers and spirituality that you do? Because it's quite a unique combination.
I find. So how did I come to work with teenagers? I'm going to try and shorten some of my answers. And if it goes like long, then you can just go, okay, Cassandra, thank you. Let's just, so I have been living on my own, or I should say, I was living on my own as a teenager at 14 years old. I have what, again, labels, we use them, but they help us to understand things. So what society might call a troubled background. Because there was a lot of abuse in my background. And then I found myself as a homeless teenager. I went through a lot from the ages of 6 all the way until around 18 years old. So a lot of that has been splotchy. But one thing that I decided early in my life was that if I could do something to help other young people not to go through what I went through, even a small portion of it, if I would be able to provide support in some way, I would do that. And so initially I became a foster parent, and I did that for an extended period of time. I fostered teens, and that was a good experience. And either they were reunited with their families, or they stayed with me and went to high school and went on to college. And then some of them did not make it through high school or through college, but I wanted to be there for support. After that, I built my career and did things like that. But my heart has always continuously gone to what can I do with teenagers to provide support? And with Light of Loving Kindness, that's what we do. We provide support. I like to say we provide services for teens and their support systems. And that looks like young people, families, communities, all of those that are around, and friends, because some young people don't have families. Some of them are homeless. In teaching my classes here in Chicago, I often mention to my students that there are always homeless students in my class, and the other students don't know it, you know? So you can't look at a young person necessarily to tell if they're doing okay. But during the pandemic, a lot has risen to the surface. And I get a lot of calls from people going, my 9-year-old, I had to take them to the hospital. They have so much anxiety. My 8-year-old, my 11-year-old, my 12. So that's what Light of Loving Kindness is doing. And that's how I got started working with young people.
Yeah, I remember also reading that you were yourself a very sensitive child and maybe open to spirituality already then. Can you see how that has influenced like the path you've chosen, in what way you wanted to help the teenagers? Because you also were working with teenagers as a professor, right?
Yes, that's
Can you
true.
see that?
And I actually started working, I was very young when I started working with young people. I was a member of a church growing up. And so I would teach in the classes there. And it seemed like every opportunity I would go to the Park District, and I teach as a linguist. My languages are sign language, Spanish, and I also study Arabic and Japanese. Although I'm not fluent in the latter two, I haven't used them for a while, but I would teach at Park Districts, just every opportunity to provide a space where young people could express themselves and find themselves. So as a child, a very young child, I remember being about 5 years old. I was at church with my family, and I remember leaving the church and walking outside because I could hear God on the stairs outside. And I felt like I needed to be like in this space so I could hear and communicate with God. Not that God was not inside as well, but I felt like I had this connection, and I could go out there and talk to God. And it was like that my entire life. So it was very interesting dynamics, because I know that I am connected, but on the other hand, I was continually going through abusive experiences in my life. So yes, spirituality from a young age. And I actually began developing my practices in my 20s. I really started utilizing them. And then at one point I said, okay, it's too much. I don't want to do this right now. And I actually pulled back. And that was because I didn't have support. I didn't understand. I didn't know what was going on. So I took a little step back. And then when I was ready, so this is a word for everyone that feels like, oh, it's too much. When you're ready, I stepped back. I took a little breath. And then when I was ready, I just came back into my spiritual practices. And then things started coming to me. And as they came to me, I would look into them, I'd study them. And the one thing I can say about my practice and the sensitivity that I feel, I know I'm a very sensitive individual even now. Sometimes I sequester myself just within my own energy because I know I'm sensitive to energy and reading energies. So this started from a very early age that I knew I had gifts. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. So that might also be one of the main drivers, because that was the next question, was like, what is the driver behind you, what you're doing today? But I can hear it for you. This spiritual connection has been like a lifeline maybe for you in your young years in a way. So is it related to what's driving you today, or do you have more than that?
I would say yes. But what really drives me is love. Mm. It is love for humanity, and it is love for what we can be. It is love for the freedom that we can experience if we learn how to love ourselves. If we just allow ourselves some space to know that we're okay. You know, look in the mirror and say, oh, I'm okay. I love myself. That's not our society. There are so many things that point to the opposite of that. And I find, especially with young people, but not only with young people, we are really hard on ourselves. And it's hard for us to express ourselves sometimes. And it's hard to love ourselves. And so, all of this, I'm trying to think of a summary so that I don't just keep going on and on about it, but to think about it as a summary, for me, it is spirituality, and it is love. Not even the emotion of love. I don't believe that it's an emotion. I feel that it is an energy. There are energies that we can experience. And the reason I say this is because there are energies that we experience here in this world that are experienced in the beyond. You can call it heaven, you can call it whatever you want to, you can call it the universe, you can call it the fifth dimension. But things like joy and love, those things go with us. But there are other things that I consider to be emotions that don't go with us, that are relative to us here on the earth. And those kind of things are sometimes very, very difficult for us to work through. And so the spirituality and the love for humanity always seems to drive me to the space of how can I love myself more? And how can I share that love with others? And in what way will that help? So, yeah.
Beautiful, Cassandra. And what I hear when you talk is also an empowerment, like the power of love that you're describing. Like, don't wait for the society to come and be the one loving you. You start loving you, and then that's gonna carry the whole thing. That's what I sense when you talk. Like is what you're really helping other people to see, that they don't have to wait for it. They can really just love themselves, and that's what they're here to do. That's really, really beautiful. And I can also just say that to those listening, that Cassandra is indeed very, very clairvoyant. She was really describing our whole project before even hearing about it, like with website and all that me and Helen has coming up for this as a later in this Young and Awakening project. So that was really, really amazing to really just hear how you were describing just what we had envisioned for ourselves in the future. That was so amazing. So I can really see how you can help everyone, like just by being you and just by sharing all this wisdom that you have with you and what you're seeing. That's really, really beautiful.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this energy is really beautiful. This awakening energy. Like I said, I found that if we can allow ourselves to be open, the key is finding that space, just a little space within ourselves that still wants to love ourselves, you know, just that little bitty spark that's there. Sometimes it's huge, sometimes it's too big. We got to bring it back in, you know, but to find that little space that we can start growing that self-love and that self-awareness, and that we can start noticing. And this is what the Self-Love Bootcamp does as well. The projects that we have throughout the weeks are not self-love, 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 but they are projects where they can get together in groups and they can learn how to lead a discussion. Even if they've never held a conversation where they led a discussion, we give them the opportunity to be the leader of a group, be a participant in a group, sit in a group and say nothing if you want to. How do you want to express yourself? Have you thought about it? What do you want to do? What is your passion? Did you know that you are a hero? You are amazing. You can do what you set your mind to do. And then at the end of it, we do a community project, because we also want them to see, yes, we need to take care of ourselves, but then we also need to help others. And so, yeah, absolutely. That is how it feels. But I'll tell you one thing that has happened during the pandemic that has been a wonderful thing for me. And it is that it has slowed me down to a place where I have put my own self-care at the top of everything I do. Because very frequently what I have found is that people that we have nonprofits or people that work with communities, or, you know, like the environment, another subject, won't go there today, but the environment and nature and food and agriculture and all of these things, you know, we have all of these things that we are looking at. And it can be a lot.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I have found that we sometimes go and try and save the world when inside we are dying. We are crushed. We on the inside can barely breathe. We're breathing like this, right? And so one thing that I learned in the pandemic was, no, I have to take care of myself. Because if I can love myself and learn to accept myself, and it's an everyday process, it's an everyday waking up saying, oh, you, look at you. You go, girl. What are you going to do today that makes you happy? I do it before I step out of the bed, before I get out of the bed now, because I have learned that, yes, I love working with others and I love giving of myself, but I also have to learn how to receive. And I also have to learn how to love myself. So that's what I also learned through this whole pandemic. And that's what we're going to be sharing with young people too.
Yeah, that's so beautiful what you're describing. And I can also see that is really needed both in adults, but also as in teenagers, as you mentioned, because they have a whole different life experience of being more dependent on other for their safety and security, or that's the experience at least they're having, right? So they're really depending on someone else setting up a safe environment for them, it feels. So if they can really come in and feel that safe space inside of them, and from there feel a clarity in what to do and how to help others, as you mentioned, because I see that too, right? We tend to give a lot, or we before COVID maybe.
Before COVID. Pre and post COVID.
Pre-COVID. So this whole thing of giving so much that it doesn't feel very comfortable anymore, because it really feels really good to give, as you're also saying, like bringing the teenagers together to really also show them or let them feel and remember that sharing is caring. That
sharing
it really
feels caring.
Good it feels really good inside to share, and very powerful also for yourself if you're in a good place, if you feel aligned and feel the love inside. So what I would like your perspective on is, do you see that young people need something else now than they needed when you were young? Do you see that there's some shifts in how they're doing and what they need, and also their abilities? How has it shifted?
That is a good question. Let me write this down. I want to remember all of this because I'm going to take notes so the difference that I see between young people when I was a child and a teenager and growing up, I will tell you honestly, it's a little difficult for me to answer. And let me tell you why. This is the discussion I was having yesterday. First, I would say yes. I would say yes in some areas because there wasn't the same technology. I didn't have a cell phone that I could look at every day, all day, and do multiple things with. I've seen a shift because of technology as a professor. What I have noticed in just over the last 5 to 7 years as a professor, whereas students used to walk down the halls and talk to each other and they're laughing, having conversations, sitting together, our students sit in the halls, or they may sit together, but they don't communicate. They don't look at each other. And we discuss this quite frequently. My students tell me that it is easier for them to text someone across the room than to actually have a conversation. And I say, why is that? And I get the same answers every time, because they might judge me. Somebody might judge me. There is an intense anxiety that seems to be roaming through our planet. It is affecting young people. It is affecting adults. Through the pandemic, it rose to an all-time high, and it affected me as well. I didn't feel like I had what I would consider to be major issues with anxiety before the pandemic, but it did. And as you said, young people, they are used to being cared for. They're used to having that support and someone lifting them up. And it's been very difficult. So yes, those are some differences that I notice. And of course, there are a lot of differences in advertising and media. I have heard people say that everything has to be sexy now. If you want it to sell, it's got to be sexy, which is fun, I think. But for our young people, it is very challenging. And I will tell you that every group of young people that I work with, they hate it, but they're right there in the middle of it. Because you have to be seen. You have to be this way. You have to. I have to. And what I'm saying is, you don't have to be anything. You don't have to do anything unless you want to. As for abilities, young people are coming into this planet now with gifts that it took some of us 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years to develop. I've had conversations about this too. And I say to people who've been practicing their gifts for 20 or 30 years, and they're like, people are being born with these gifts. And I'm like, yes. And you know what that means? number one, there are always people that lead the way, so to speak, right? They're always the forerunners. And now it's up to us to work with the young people who are coming in with these clairvoyant skills or coming in with these artistic skills. There is so much that they are bringing into the planet right now. And if we could just open like this and allow for self-expression, allow them to pursue their passions, then yeah, I think it would be amazing, such an amazing world. Right now, we seem to be torn between two camps, kind of. I mean, I know there are more, but there seem to be like two really strong forces happening right now. And I am saying, let's choose awakening. Let's awaken everybody.
Yeah, let's just do that.
Let's just do it.
I support that. When I hear you speaking, I also hear that it's like they come in with this huge abilities and sensitivity, but it's the embodiment that they need to feel safe in the body that they need assistance with. Is that so?
I would say, I will tell you, because of the way we structure programs with Light of Loving Kindness, my private practice, in my private practice, I am an intuitive channeler. I do those things, Reiki and all of those things. But for Light of Loving Kindness, I should say, and for Light of Loving Kindness, the modalities that we use and that we share are all science-based. So if you go to the website, you'll see the science of healing, because there is science behind breath work and yoga and meditation and mindfulness and art and music and colors and aromatherapy and sound. And, so I'm like, you can be a clothing designer and you can be the most mindful person in the world, right? So yes, part of it is the embodiment. And a huge part of it is simply allowing yourself to know who you are, to clear away the clutter and the judgment and the shame. I know I'm clearing it, right? So to clear that away, so that young people can start sensing themselves, not what media tells them they are, news media, social media, not what educational systems tell them they are. And I'm a professor and I can still say this. And it's really finding a space within themselves where they feel comfortable, where they feel safe, secure in the small group that we are in, to start allowing more of themselves to come out. And so, yes, I agree. It is mind, body, emotion, and spirit connection. It's all four. Yeah.
So beautiful. And that leads me to talking more about the self-love boot camp, because what was my next question was about what the young people are needing to thrive more from your perspective, but also you coming from a community that more trauma affected community that you're focusing on. And so these young people might need some extra care or need some more than others. So I would love to hear, what are you offering to these young people? And then later I would like your perspective on like more as a whole, like what do you see all teenagers could use?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's such a good question. Some of the things that the Self-Love Bootcamp offers, and I will say this too, we offer it for free for young people that are from trauma-affected or low-income areas, and also homeless youth in Chicago. There are a couple of organizations that work with homeless youth. They house them. And so these organizations, we provide it for free. That is our goal. And so we are raising funds right now to be able to do that for the Self-Love Bootcamp. But it is also going to be open to young people in general. That's one aspect of the bootcamp. For these young people, what we have done is Light of Loving Kindness works with psychologists and with nurses. We also do like workplace, heal the healers in workplaces. During COVID, we did a lot of work in hospitals and with nurses and doctors and behavioral health organizations and things like that. Excuse me. So we have available psychologists that work with us, because although the topics in the self-love bootcamp are all uplifting and motivating topics, when we really start looking at ourselves, sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes it might even be painful. I don't know. It's different for every single group. So we do have individuals that are available. So that if somebody just needs some time out, somebody needs to have somebody to talk one-on-one with, and they don't want to talk to a peer, they also have individuals that they can talk with. These are all holistic individuals as well. They are all people that practice yoga and mindfulness and reiki and what Light of Loving Kindness practices, which is alternative, complementary, and integrative holistic health. We never say, don't see a doctor. We never say, don't go to the therapist, don't do that. No, that's not what we do. But what we say is, do what you feel you need to do, but add this to it, because you just don't know until you try. And we continually see these situations where once they try something, even the young people, they're like, I can't talk to people. I can't talk to people. I can't, I don't want them to look at me. There's so much anxiety. Mm-hmm. And then within just a few weeks, it's like music because it's just flowing so beautifully in the classroom. So yes, we offer that support for them. And then for the broader community, which we are also going to be offering the self-love bootcamp to, but we have not opened that up yet. I'm not sure what additional supports we might need where that is concerned. But yeah, we're working on it though.
That is so amazing. So can you maybe explain about the specific classes? There are some artwork and also some meditation, maybe. I read about it on the page. So maybe you can just highlight a few of the classes that the young people
I will do it. I'm going to have to put on my glasses for this so I can read a little bit for you. So, okay, I will tell you about some of the weeks of the Self-Love Bootcamp. So the facilitators for the Self-Love Bootcamp will be trained. They get a significant amount of training. And we work with people that have already been trained to work with young people. So that's one really wonderful thing. The Self-Love Bootcamp was written by teens for teens. Light of Loving Kindness has a program called the Leaders Internship Program. And this year when we got together, they worked with us and they told us, this is what we're experiencing. This is what we need. We need support. The word support came up so many times in these conversations. And so they helped us to create this. So it really is youth driven. All right, so let me see. So in the first week, they're going to be studying manifestation or the law of attraction, which I thought was wonderful.
How amazing is that? I love that.
We're jumping right in with focusing on what you want. What did you say? I'm sorry, Matilda.
I said it's the most exciting program already. I really love it.
Yeah, so they start there. I'll just give you there's a lot of things we'll do. We always start with an icebreaker, always an icebreaker. And then after we discuss it with the group, then they go into, after we discuss it with everyone, they go into individual groups, I will say. And so within their groups, they reflect upon whatever the icebreaker was. So for week 1, the icebreaker is thorn, rose, and bud. And we're using the artwork of a rose and talking about the different components of a rose and relating it to our lives. Mm-hmm. And then there's a journal reflection. They do journaling. And then positive affirmation workshop is in the very first class. So we have a guest speaker coming in. We have a plethora of guest speakers. There's a guest speaker every week through the program for the young people. So we have a guest speaker that comes in, and they are going to be talking to them about creating the life of their dreams. So they'll do some more visualization, vision boarding, and all of that is in week 1. Week 2, they're going to talk about forgiveness, compassion, and your personal best. And it goes on and on and on. Week 3 is relationships and mirroring. And then we get into the hero's journey, and then we flip it on them the next week. And then it's the hero in you. And that's the class that is sometimes challenging, because when we do the hero's journey and we talk about superheroes, everybody's like, yes, I love this. And then when they come back the next week and we say, aha, you're really the hero. For some of our young people, that's very difficult. They've never felt like that. They cannot imagine a world where they are a hero. And that's when we have, we have support there available just in the event, or maybe they had a hero and they lost a hero, in the week before. It's really wonderful. We go into body positivity and a lot of different things. And then the last 4 weeks, some of the projects that they've done, the muraling, like going to a community center and doing a mural for the center, or doing rock gardens, or volunteering at the park, or just different community projects, but they get to decide the project that moves them. And then they go into research and they develop the plan and they create the project and they work on the budget and they decide what they're going to bring in. So there's a lot in the self-love bootcamp. It's very interactive. So
that sounds so amazing. I just got so moved by the hero's journey. That's really, really beautiful. It's so perfect for them to see. But I can really imagine that can really bring up some emotions around just allowing yourself to be the hero in your own life. And that's a message for all of us. I know.
I agree. I've had adults say to me, can you do the self-love bootcamp for adults?
Yeah.
And I said, yes, we can, except that I'm only one person right now, and I work with a small team, but we are growing and we are expanding. Yeah. And yes, just be patient and give us some time, because our focus right now is on the young people because of the pandemic. Yes.
That's so amazing. And if some young people want to sign up for this, or if someone wants to donate to your organization or this specific boot camp, how can they do that?
Oh, great. Yes, they can go to our website. Our website is www.lightoflovingkindness.org. You can find us in all social media. We're on Twitter and LinkedIn. We're everywhere on social media. So except for, we're on Snapchat too, but find us on Facebook or IG. Those are the best places. We have a campaign right now. And so if you go to the website, click on programs and then self-love bootcamp.
Yeah.
And it'll show you the crowdsource funding. The application for the bootcamp is there. If you know young people that want to apply, they don't have to wait. They can apply from all over the world. And we are scheduling right now 4 sessions for the next 12 months. And so, yeah.
And are there any requirements if you're applying for one of these? If you're, for example, a young person from another part of the US or another part of the world?
Or if you're from no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Yeah. Because we planned it virtually because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Now we can move around a little bit. And so what we are doing for our first session, we are planning for the 12 weeks, 3 weeks virtually for the group that's in Chicago for these communities. And then 1 week face-to-face, because we still need to be able to utilize the parameters for COVID and seating and things like that. But for those that join us internationally, it will be all virtual.
Yeah.
So, and if you want to volunteer, email me. We're always looking for guest speakers, practitioners, and people that love working with young people, families, and community. Yes.
Yeah. Beautiful. I will also leave the link here when I post the video, so people know how to contact you, and your email, so people know how they can connect with you. Yeah. So I have a few questions left. We're just about to wrap up. One of the questions I would really like to ask you, if you could have like a wish for the teenagers all over the world, like one wish or maybe two, what is your biggest wish for them that they would have or that they would experience?
Wow. Okay, that's a tricky question too. Everything is tricky because, the way I view life is not the way a lot of other people view life, but this is how I feel about it. So let me say this in this way. I would wish for them Of course, self-love, because that covers so much. Not just that, but starting today, right now, this moment. And like I said, finding whatever you can find that makes you feel good about yourself. And if they can't find something to feel good about themselves, something that makes them happy. What can I do that's going to just help me to have positive emotions? And then build from there. You know, what is that? Look, even if it's having an ice cream cone and sitting in the middle of the forest, whatever it is, you know, walking down the street, talking to a friend, playing a game, do something that's going to make you feel happy. Don't be dependent on it, but start working on that self-love. But the real thing that I would say for young people and for everybody, I'm going to term it self-expression. That's what I'm going to term it. What it feels like to me is freedom to be who I am. What it feels like to me is it's okay to be a professor and have as many earned degrees as you want to, and be a spiritual practitioner that talks to spirit guides and that channels and knows that I am connected continually to source energy. I know this. For me, that's personal freedom. And when I say personal freedom, I have to qualify it, because we put meanings on words. Oh, we must be almost done, because I feel like I'm circling back to the labels discussion that I had in the beginning, full circle. We put meanings on words like freedom, and we're afraid of words like freedom sometimes because we see how people take the word freedom and they abuse it. They use it to kill. They use it for hatred. They use it to maim others. They use it to destroy the planet, to torture animals. It's one thing to eat them, but do you have to torture them? I have never seen a lion in the jungle torture an animal before it kills it. I've never seen that, ever. You know, and so anyway, okay, now see what I mean? I said, you're going to have to pull me back. You're going to have to pull me back. Okay.
I'm just enjoying it.
So freedom that's not what freedom means to me. To some people it does. And then other people think, oh, I can't give them freedom, because if they do freedom, they're going to do this to me and this to me. And no. Freedom means knowing who I am, working through all of the shame and judgment that people might want to put on me or you or anyone else, and making the choice to love myself and be myself. That's what I would wish for young people. And it is an everyday thing. But I'm willing to do it every day because it feels really good to be me. It didn't before. It hasn't always felt like that. You know, I too am diagnosed with PTSD. And so, I've had depression and anxiety. And so coming at this target of mental health, I didn't just pull it out of the sky. I suffered through it for many, many, many years. And now it feels good to be me. Doesn't mean I don't get depressed. Doesn't mean I don't have anxiety, but it means I have a focus and a source within myself, not exterior always, but within myself. And that source is connected. And so that's what I would want. I would want them to be connected to themselves and their support systems.
That's so beautiful, Cassandra. Yeah, and I feel that's the perfect way to end this. Unless you have something more to add?
I don't think so. Just blessings, everyone. Thank you for joining me. Thank you, Matilda. I had so much fun. So maybe you'll have me back and I'll give you an update and I'll tell you how the self-love bootcamp is going.
Yeah, it's been amazing talking to you. I really loved the whole conversation. So exciting. And I'm convinced that other people will feel the same way when they watch this. Yeah. It's just been amazing. Thank you so much, Cassandra, for being here with me.
Bye, girl.
I can't wait to have you back.
Thank you. You too. You too. All right.